Have you ever wondered how Iran went from a Western-friendly monarchy to a staunch Islamic republic seemingly overnight? In the mid-20th century, Iran was under the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. His reign was defined by an ambitious vision of modernization and westernization. Iran, during this time, was a nation on the move, marching towards a future that was progressive and hopeful. The Shah's goal was to transform Iran into a global power, and he introduced a series of sweeping changes to achieve this. The Shah's White Revolution, launched in the early 1960s, was a major social and economic reform program. It aimed at transforming Iran's traditional agrarian society into a modern industrialized one. Land reforms were implemented, distributing land among peasants and reducing the influence of feudal landlords. Education was expanded, and women were granted the right to vote. The Shah's modernization efforts were not limited to social reforms. He also embarked on massive infrastructure projects developing roads, hospitals, schools, and industries. At the heart of this transformation was the Shah's close alliance with Western powers. The United States and the United Kingdom, eager to secure a reliable ally in the Middle East, supported the Shah's modernization agenda. The Shah in return ensured that Iran remained open to Western influence and interests. But this relationship was not without its critics. Many Iranians felt that their country was losing its cultural identity in the face of rapid westernization. The Shah's reforms, while progressive on the surface, were also seen as a means to consolidate his power. His autocratic rule, coupled with a growing gap between the rich and poor, fueled discontent among the populace. As the decade wore on, the winds of change began to blow. The Shah's rule was increasingly challenged, leading to widespread protests and calls for revolution. The stage was set for a dramatic transformation, one that would redefine Iran's identity and its place in the world. But this era of modernization and westernization was not to last. The ground was shifting beneath Iran's feet, and the country was about to take a turn that would shock the world. As the 1970s dawned, the winds of change began to blow in Iran. This was a time when the country was teetering on the edge of transformation, a time when the discontentment among the people was growing steadily. While the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was busy implementing sweeping westernization policies, the people of Iran were grappling with a different reality. The Shah's regime was seen as a puppet of the West, and his autocratic rule did little to endear him to his subjects. The Shah's policies aimed at modernizing Iran were viewed with suspicion and resentment by many Iranians. The rapid westernization and secularization were seen as an affront to traditional and religious values. These changes were not subtle, not gentle, but rather a whirlwind of transformation that left many feeling lost and disoriented. But there was more. The Shah's rule was marked by corruption and extravagance. The gap between the rich and the poor widened, and the middle class, the backbone of any society, was being squeezed out. The Shah's opulent lifestyle, his disregard for the economic difficulties faced by his people, only fueled the growing dissatisfaction. And then, from this simmering discontent, emerged a powerful voice of opposition: Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Khomeini was not just a religious leader, but a symbol of resistance against the Shah's regime. His message resonated with the people, his words igniting the flames of rebellion. The Iranians, tired of the Shah's rule, rallied behind Khomeini, their anger and frustration finding an outlet in him. The country was soon gripped by protests and strikes. Teachers, students, workers, all sections of society were on the streets, their voices united in their demand for change. The Shah's regime, once seemingly invincible, was now on shaky ground. The stage was set for a revolution, and it would come sooner than anyone expected. The winds of change were not just blowing, they were howling, signaling the end of one era and the dawn of another. And in the heart of this storm, Iran was about to undergo a transformation that would redefine its identity and reshape its future. By 1979, the situation in Iran had become untenable. As the winds of change blew across the country, a wave of discontentment had been growing, culminating in a series of protests that marked the beginning of what we now know as the Islamic Revolution. The Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran's monarch, was seen as a puppet of the West, his policies of modernization and secularization drawing the ire of the religious and conservative populace. With economic instability and political repression adding to the public's discontent, the Shah's rule was increasingly viewed as illegitimate. The protests swelled, and in January 1979, the Shah was forced to leave Iran, marking a significant turning point. Enter Ruhollah Khomeini, a Shia cleric who had been living in exile in France for almost 15 years. A staunch critic of the Shah's regime, Khomeini was seen by many as the figurehead of the revolution. His return to Iran in February 1979 was met with jubilation by millions of Iranians. His charismatic leadership and his vision of an Islamic state resonated with the populace, who had grown disillusioned with the Shah's rule. In the months that followed, Khomeini and his followers worked tirelessly to transform Iran into an Islamic republic. A referendum held in April 1979 saw an overwhelming majority of Iranians voting in favor of this transformation. With this, the Islamic Republic of Iran was born, marking the end of 2.5 millennia of monarchy. The Islamic Revolution was not just a political upheaval, it was a fundamental shift in the way the country was governed and the way Iranians saw themselves in relation to the world. The monarchy had been replaced by a theocratic republic, with Khomeini as its supreme leader. The Western-influenced secular laws were replaced by Islamic law, and Iran's relationship with the West, particularly the United States and the United Kingdom, dramatically altered. In a remarkably short period, Iran had transformed from a monarchy to an Islamic republic. The revolution had far-reaching consequences, both within Iran and beyond its borders. The Islamic Revolution didn't just change the face of Iran's political landscape, it also reformed the society and the country's position on the global stage. The new regime, under the leadership of Ayatollah Khomeini, implemented strict Islamic law, reshaping the nation's cultural and social identity. This was a stark contrast from the westernized image Iran had portrayed under the Shah. The revolution was not without its purge. Those associated with the former regime were systematically removed from their positions, and in some cases, faced severe punishment. The new regime was relentless in its pursuit to eradicate any remnants of the Shah's rule. This period saw a significant increase in public executions and imprisonment, with former high-ranking officials being the primary targets. And then, there was the Iran hostage crisis. In November 1979, a group of Iranian students stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, taking 52 American diplomats and citizens hostage. This event, lasting for 444 days, was a direct blow to U.S.-Iran relations and marked the beginning of Iran's international isolation. The 1980s brought more turmoil with the onset of the Iran-Iraq War. What initially seemed like a quick border skirmish turned into an 8-year-long conflict, resulting in hundreds of thousands of casualties and a crippled economy. The war further isolated Iran, as the West, led by the U.S., largely supported Iraq. Iran's relationship with the West, especially with the US and the UK, changed dramatically post-revolution. Once considered allies, the new Islamic Republic found itself increasingly alienated. Countries that had once embraced Iran were now imposing sanctions, and the nation that was once a player in international politics was now viewed as an outcast. Iran had gone from a Western ally to an international pariah. The revolution, while achieving its aim of overthrowing the Shah, had left the country isolated and its people under a regime far removed from the Western influence they had once known. So, what can we learn from Iran's journey from Westernization to Islamic Revolution? It's a tale that unfurls over a surprisingly short span of time. Within a few decades, Iran transformed from a nation eagerly embracing Westernization under the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi to a strict Islamic republic. This drastic shift was a result of a series of events and changes, all occurring in rapid succession, ultimately leading to the Islamic Revolution. Let's revisit the key moments. The winds of change began to blow when widespread dissatisfaction with the Shah's rule started to take root. This was largely due to his aggressive push for Westernization and modernization, which many Iranians felt was eroding their cultural identity and Islamic values. The discontent was further fueled by the perceived corruption and brutality of his regime. The situation reached a boiling point, leading to massive protests and strikes that paralyzed the country. The Shah was left with little choice but to leave Iran in January 1979, marking the end of a 2,500-year-old monarchy. The vacuum left by the Shah's departure led to the rise of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, who established an Islamic Republic. The new regime was starkly different from its predecessor, with strict Islamic laws and a considerable shift from Western norms and values. The Islamic Revolution had profound impacts both within Iran and beyond its borders. Internally, it reshaped the country's social, political, and cultural landscape. Externally, it drastically altered Iran's international relations, turning it from an ally of the US and UK into a pariah in the eyes of many Western nations. In closing, the journey of Iran from Westernization to Islamic Revolution serves as a stark reminder of how swiftly and drastically a nation can change. As we look at Iran today, it's clear that the echoes of the revolution still resonate, shaping the country's path and its place in the world.